Hello, everyone, and welcome to a session that we're calling Love Your Health, an OLE, our local establishment programming done by myself, Melball Collins, and my partner over there, Bobby Munson. Bobby, how you doing today?
I am doing pretty good now, I would say. It's been a little rough start. I know we've been planning this for quite some time now, but here we are, and I'm very happy to be doing this. I'm encouraged and positive about this because I really feel that this is a great idea that you had. I'm honored that you asked me to be a part of this. I'm looking forward to
Well,
this.
thank you for joining me on this. This is definitely one that's going to be I think, a little bit more serious tone than what we're used to here on OLE,
Yeah,
but I think we're ready for it, and I think our audience is ready for it too. Obviously, by the name of what we got going here, Love Your Health, Bobby and I are here today to talk to you about pretty much our weight loss journeys. Myself, having used to be morbidly obese, my heaviest weight was about 250 at a 5'3" frame. Bobby, you had something very comparable with yourself. Don't know if you wanted to share with the viewers right now what you were kind of sitting at
for sure.
as
Now,
well.
now I hit 2 points and stuff, and I didn't mention the first time. So I did battle with it most of my life that we'll talk about.
Mhm.
And then I got into my early 20s and I was at probably around the 280 mark. And then I did lose and come back down to just over 200 at one point. And then I kind of fell back into that trap again. And
Mhm.
over time, built it up to the point where I got so bad, I was at 350 pounds. And it was at my absolute worst and probably scariest moments in my life. And my health
Mhm.
became a very big concern for me.
Very, very relatable. And that was something I also did go through in my 20s myself with that yo yo kind of weight gain, weight loss, weight gain, weight loss. And then it like never seems to actually go all the way back down. It was one of those things where it was like almost down and then back up and then almost down and back up. And that's kind of how we ended up kind of like stacking up those extra kind of numbers, it seems. With myself, just diving into the journey here. My childhood, I was very active, and I was kind of forced to be active. I had very active parents. I was involved in sports that sometimes I didn't really want to be involved in, but on hindsight, these sports did keep me in shape, on track. I was a very, very petite, tiny child until my 20s when I moved out. My parents always gave me really good quality food. We didn't have like my mother wasn't like a crazy vegan or anything like that, but like she made the regular like meat, potatoes, veggies. She was very, very concise about that. Always made sure I had my milk. Very adamant I eat my breakfast and all that kind of stuff. Um, but that's pretty much how my childhood was before my stupid adulthood went, hey, I know what I'm doing. I can take care of myself, and I'm just going to eat McDonald's for the next 5 to 10 years.
Mhm.
Bobby, how was your childhood in that regard?
So with childhood, I guess, yeah, like, I was into sports like yourself. So I grew up in a family that comes from England initially. So soccer and boxing became a thing. Boxing, I never really took it too seriously, but it was always shown to me. My father was boxer, his father was boxer, this age old story. But soccer was huge. And I was in soccer since I was about the age of 4. And I played quite well. I always played up front as a striker for the longest time. And as I got a little bit older, kids at school would start to call me fat. Like this was becoming a regular thing. And I never thought of myself as fat. Like I was always tall. I'm a very tall guy. Like I'm 6'3" now, and I was
Oh,
always the
wow.
tallest in my class. I hit my growth spurt as a really young kid. Used to have growing pains when I was, at the age of like 6 and 7. Like it was horrible. But I never really thought of myself as a heavy set person at all, kind of thing. That mentality wasn't there, but I was always hanging out with people that ran track and all these different things. And other soccer players that they get this mentality: you're tall, you might have a little extra weight to you, kind of thing, because you're born a bigger person. And that became the way back then, especially in the early 90s and stuff like that. It's just how kids would act and everything. And
Mhm.
it's tough on a person, but of course then I start to fall into that trap of thinking this way. And yeah, and then all of a sudden it would be I didn't want to participate as much. Like I was still play soccer, but then I started to fall back into being a defender because I didn't want to be up front anymore. I didn't want to be as active. And on weekends I didn't really want to go out to do outdoor activity. I'd rather be inside playing a game or reading a book because I was an avid reader. But I always wanted to have a snack or something like that, or watch a
Mhm.
movie and have a bowl of chips or something along those lines. And I even remember it didn't help that, my dad is a very different man, to say the least. We haven't talked in over 10 years even, and that's a story for another time. But
Mhm.
I do remember like some of the what I don't think even he realized was mental abuse at the time. But like I remember being about anywhere between 8 and 10. We were at a friend's place one evening, and we were going to be watching a movie. And I asked on behalf of the group of all the kids, would we be allowed to have a snack? And my dad goes, okay, do me a favor, look down and see if you can see your feet. And so I just looked straight at the floor, not knowing what kind of trap he's setting me up for. And I looked down at the floor and he goes, could you see him? I'm like, well, no, I see the floor. And he goes, well, that tells me one thing. You don't need a snack, fatty.
Oh.
Was the kind of
Oof.
bringing that I had at the time. It wasn't really a positive, how can we
Mhm.
help? It was always, and he was nobody to talk. He's a heavy set gentleman himself. So it was harder to take seriously when you've got somebody who is overweight themselves telling
Mhm.
you all these things and bringing you down for it kind of thing. So it kind of,
Mhm.
in a sense, I think mentally discouraged me from ever really taking it seriously. And then as I'm older now, I kind of think that it's also because I just didn't understand foods I was eating. I didn't understand because a lot of misinformation over the years about things that you're putting into your body and stuff like that that really have a more of a negative effect than people do realize. And so
Mhm.
that was
Mhm.
definitely the younger side of me anyway. And I ended up being a little bit heavier set. I know by high school I was about 220 pounds, 6'3", 220 pounds, which isn't massive for a 6'3" guy, but I was bigger. On the wrestling team, I was always the guy that had to be in the heavyweight category and stuff. Everybody else is fighting in every other weight category. I'm the one guy that's in the heavyweight situation and everything like that.
No.
So it did feel a little outcasted at times, but I just
Mhm.
never knew how to get to that point where I could be positive about myself until I guess more recently, so to speak.
Mhm, mhm. It's always those more recent events. I'm in the same boat here. And to go back to what you said, the mental abuse, it is something that sometimes I feel that family members or even friends, they do so unknowingly, as you mentioned, or maybe knowingly. Who knows what what their intentions were. I know with myself, my parents in particular, my mother, I know what she was telling me was coming from a place of love and concern, but the method of delivery is usually where that care and concern almost kind of gets thrown over their shoulder, and it ends up coming out in such a way that is actually more detrimental to the
Mhm.
person hearing it than it is helpful. With myself, whenever like my mother, bless her heart, she tried so hard to motivate me to want to not be obese. But when you come to someone and say, "Have you ever considered losing some weight?" It was like she was almost expecting me to have that, light bulb, like, "Oh my god, you're absolutely right. I didn't even like think about that." It's something that needs to be more addressed, and I think it is something that if maybe people researched a little bit more, there's tons of things that you can find on the internet that shows you how to be a little bit more compassionate about these kinds of things, because it's not fun. And
No.
especially as a child yourself, you're 8 to 10 years old, having to hear that from a parent, it's hard and it's not helpful, and as I mentioned, it does create more of a detriment than anything. For myself, when I would hear these things, it would cause the opposite thing. I wouldn't be motivated to want to lose weight. I'd be like, "Oh, you think there's a problem now? Let me just eat twice as much now, and then
Mhm.
that'll show you." No, that just showed me. um, yeah, there's got to be a more constructive way that we can address these kinds of issues where we feel that we are getting our feelings across, but that we're not hurting the person in the process, because that's not the intention behind what people are typically wanting to say, right?
Yeah. And
Um, so yeah, um, for myself, when I did start to get to that point of obesity, I don't know if how, what you tried to start to lose the weight, but for myself, when I went through that first yo-yo, like Slim Fast and Atkinson's was very, very popular.
yeah.
I tried those guys, did not feel good. Um, they really, the Slim Fast kind of messes with your stomach, doesn't really make you feel very good afterwards. At least that was my experience. Atkinson's was just, that was just not fun. I think it was because there was a lot of processed stuff, and it wasn't, as you had mentioned, care about what is in the food, and just was the food. They also presented a lot of snacks. I think that didn't really help with the problem overall. Bobby, did you have any problems or any things that you tried out during your weight loss kind of time?
No, I did refuse the Atkins diet because when I heard
Good.
that one, it seemed ridiculous to me. Like, and why it seemed ridiculous was because people are going, "Oh, well, you can eat all the bacon and sausage and all this stuff you want. You just can't have bread." And I'm like, how does that make sense? I'm like, all that other stuff is stuffed with like high fat content and high sodium, very high
Mhm.
sodium and stuff like that. I'm like, there's got to be health problems to that as well too. Maybe you'll lose weight, but just because you're losing weight doesn't mean that you're definitely loving your health, as we're talking about today.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's what it comes down to. And again, I should probably say to the viewers right now too is that just because our journeys were from going heavy and trying to lose and stuff for health purposes, it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that we're saying that you should be ashamed of who you are by any means. Like,
No,
love who you are no matter what. But
absolutely.
at the same time, be health cautious because
Mhm.
I tried the different things. I tried Slim Fast. There was this one where it was like you're just literally eating soup almost every day, and that's all it is. And then you
Oh my
start to
god.
just get drained and tired and just not motivated to do anything and stuff. And yeah, weight starts coming off. But then when you go and start to eat back to your old habits, it just yo yo's back on right away. And it
Mhm.
also isn't good for your health. And mentally, it would drag you down. And I kept
Mhm.
thinking, like, is it me? Like, do I just not understand? Or is it just that my body can't take dieting? And then as I got older, I started to realize I think the problem is the word diet. And the reason I'm
Mhm.
going to say that is because diet has an end game to it. Everybody expects
Mhm.
I'm going to diet for 6 weeks and I'll be good. And you
Mhm.
can't because that's an end game. Once you start going back, that's when the yo yo effect starts to happen. And that's where
Mhm.
things get complicated. Now, what you have to start telling yourself, and the best motivation I can give to people right now is you're going to do a life change.
Mhm.
It's a life change or a life adjustment. And that's
Mhm.
because you're going to adjust completely as opposed to having a diet which has an end date to it. And you don't want to have your
Mhm.
end date. You want to be able to set yourself on a path that you can start to eliminate certain things. And the first time I lost the weight was more accidental than anything. So I got right out of high school and I was, get to my first full-time job. And this job was in a warehouse, moving
Mm.
windows and doors. And so the weight just fell right off, but I wasn't eating any better during this process. Like I
Mm.
still kind of in the same habit of eating everything, but because the weight was all coming off, I got the mentality of I'm good. It's okay. But then I get my first desk job shortly after, and boom, it comes right back instantly. There was no hope. I had no way to fight that at that point. It just came back. I kept coming back
Mhm.
more and more. And as the years went on, more and more and more. And
Mhm.
at one point, I even got the idea that, okay, I'll start getting in shape. So if I want to get in shape, I started hearing about, and a lot of people who watch our channel for wrestling purpose will know about growth hormones, which are steroids, but not steroids. So, growth
Mhm.
hormones are steroid ish without the things that the typical steroid tests can find nowadays. So you'll
Mhm,
see a
mhm.
lot of wrestlers, and I'm not going to start name dropping here, but that look like they're on steroids, and people are like, how are they passing through these tests? And it's because they're using growth hormones instead, and they have the exact same effect on you mentally, physically, and all this kind of stuff as what steroids essentially do. Yes,
Mm,
they will motivate you, and you will be lifting things like you've never lifted before and everything like that. But the second you try to reduce from this, it has a very negative yo-yo effect as well too. And
mhm.
all that muscle that you started building from the fat cells then turns into more fat cells, and the fat came on even heavier for me after I had
Mhm.
tried that method.
Yeah, yeah. It's always the risk with that stuff because there's always the chances. Like I know that some of the people you're talking about, and I know I've thought the same thing. But yeah, you're absolutely right because you can tell when the cycle comes off and things start going back to normal. And you're absolutely right. It does have to be like a life or lifestyle change that you can adapt to. With myself, like I started to put the weight on when I started to not have access to the healthy eating from my family any longer. So when I moved out, I was a spoiled only child. I came out knowing a little bit how to cook, but like I was taken care of really well. I didn't know how to do a lot on my own. All the independence that I have now, I had to learn moving out and didn't have an inclination of what to do at home. So I just started eating very poorly. I was a fast food girl. I was always at McDonald's. I lived outside of a McDonald's. I could walk there if I was drunk. So, like when I'm drinking in my 20s, 2 in the morning, guess where I'm going for a cheeseburger? Extra pickles. I'm going to McDonald's.
Mhm.
Um, this enabled me to flux quite a bit. And I was in an area of new growth also within St. Albert. So not only did a McDonald's was there for a while, now a Wendy's popped up across the street and an A&W and a KFC. And now I was surrounded by just essentially laziness and convenience of
Mhm.
going to these stores instead of coming home and cooking myself a good meal. So yeah, on top of that, I was doing the same thing you were. I was not changing my food eating intake, but still trying to go to a gym and trying to work out and wondering why I wasn't seeing results. Um, and I was also to share a story. I was one of those people who went to the gym. This keeping in mind, this was like a decade ago. This was the times have really changed in the gym, and I want to emphasize that with this story. When I went to the gym once, I was very very large, over 200 pounds. I was probably close to 230 at this point, and I'm just sitting there doing the curls, lifting like and I had no muscle. I was a fatty who had no strength. So I'm sitting there lifting, curling 5 pounds, hoping that I don't look like a moron in the women's only room. And I had the pair of skinny girls behind me making fun of me, and you could see it in the mirror and stuff like that. It really hurts the self confidence when you're seeing that. But again, I want to drive home. This is not something that I have seen in the gym since. So don't let the mentality of, oh, I'm going to go there and someone's going to make fun of me. It's not going to happen. As someone who went through that experience and then ended up working at the same gym 5 years later, not being a fatty, I can tell you that the gym mentality has become not one of aggravation, but one of support. And that if you are looking for somebody to go and like, if you're looking to go to a gym and find somebody to support you, I guarantee you can go to any gym and find somebody at some time who's willing to be a hype person for you. The gym might not be your thing either. After that experience, I refused to go to the gym for a very, very long time. And this ended up making me balloon even more. Um, what ended up starting me to get to my not obviously largeness um, was simple stretches. Was
Mhm.
just, why not? I'm sitting on the couch, I'm watching TV, I'm watching a video game or something, I'm watching my partner play a video game. I'm already doing nothing. Why can't I do something? And that's how my journey at 250, 5'3" started, was just stretching on the couch. And then from there, I started to notice results. And suddenly I can touch my toes again. Like, I couldn't see those things for the longest time, let alone touch them. Even painting my toes, I had to do this like weird, awkward contortion thing where like my foot was like somehow up in the air. It was awful to watch. But simple stretches, and then from there, anyone who has an Xbox, you have an excuse to work out. The Xbox Adventures, the Connect games,
Hmm.
for the, I think it was the Xbox 360 is what I had.
Yeah.
The Connect Adventures, the dancing games. I can't tell you how many calories and how much sweat that my poor floor and rug collected underneath me from just dancing to Miley Cyrus, and I don't even like Miley Cyrus, but like just dancing the pounds off. This enabled me to start shedding quite a bit of weight, because it got me moving. And because I enjoyed the dancing and the moving, it motivated me to do more and made me want to get excited about working out. Bobby, did you have any experiences like this where you found something that you just really, really liked and it ended up being really, really helpful for you in this?
There's been a few things along the way for sure. So definitely with the more recent times, stuff like that. So I know we were talking before we went on screen here, about the time that I joined up and decided to take a weekend camp for pro wrestling, here in the area. And that was when I was at my heaviest. I was 350. I know I was coaching soccer, but there was times, and I was starting to notice it, that I would try to get involved at that point. And I was always a heavier guy playing soccer, and I could keep up. I was fine.
Mhm.
I was starting to notice now I'm in my mid 30s. I'm 350 pounds, and I would get going. And then next thing you know, I'm off to the side. I am dripping with sweat, and I couldn't catch my breath. To the point where my chest would hurt. I couldn't
Mhm.
catch my breath. And I was keep telling myself, oh, it's just because I worked too hard. I worked too hard and stuff. I wouldn't want to believe that I was getting to the point of dangerously ill. And so then I signed up for the wrestling stuff, and I got in there. And anybody who has done a weekend camp or knows a little bit, you get to the point where they ask you to do a foot bump. And this is a standing still flip from a standstill position, the thing you would have done as a kid on a trampoline once upon a time. And I'm thinking, I haven't done a flip period since I was a kid, probably before I was like 12 years old. And I'm thinking, and I'm 350 pounds, I'm 35 years old. Like, this is not a good idea. Like, so they're like, well, you can either do it or you can leave. All right, okay, I'll give it a shot. And so I managed to get over. I managed to finish the class, all 2 hours of it, believe it or not, including all the cardio they had us running. I suffered through it. I died almost, but I suffered through it because I didn't want anybody to believe that I was there for the wrong reasons, I guess, so to speak, even
Mhm.
though like my plan was to be, a commentator, a manager, something along those lines. No intent to actually wrestle. I felt like I should still learn some of it,
Mhm.
kind of thing, just to be
Mhm.
on that side a bit. So I
Mhm.
made it through. And after that, I know I came home and I was going to go up for a shower. And I get to the top of the stairs and I was out of breath walking to the top of
Mhm.
my stairs, a flight of stairs in my little home. And I'm like, I'm going to die. I really am. I'm gonna die if I don't do something. And it's a good thing that I have the wife that I do, who's loving and supporting of me. And together we got motivated to start doing better. And we started off with DDP yoga, actually.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we started with a little bit of DDP yoga, and also, if anybody remembers Taibo that Billy Blanks used to do,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, he has all his videos available on YouTube. So again, if you want to learn something at home, you can get certain videos like this that you can do in the comfort of your own home, so that you don't have to worry about the fear of the gym. Like, there's always
Mhm.
that little bit of a fear that you're going to get picked on or
Mhm.
seen or whatever at the gym. And I totally get it. I've been there. So you can start these things at home. And so we'd start with do one or the other. And then sometimes we're like, oh, let's do both. We push ourselves to do both in one day. And And we started adding a little bit of Tai Chi into the mix and stuff like that. And so my balance was coming back. We were losing weight. We were getting stronger. And then we started to go, okay, we live in a nice little town, like city town kind of thing. Let's go for a walk. There's a nice walking path behind our house and everything. So we'd go for this little walk, and it would take us about an hour at the time. And then the more we kept doing it, we were faster at it every single time. It got to the point where we could do this walk in like 25 minutes. That we used to take us an hour.
Wow.
So we're like, well, why don't we just go a little further? So we start going a little further through this next little area and added a little bit. And then we realized, oh, well, there's a park over there. Let's go a little further. And then shortly after that, we realized, oh yeah, they built that new area that's got these like man-made lakes and stuff. They're just these ponds with these beautiful fountains in them and stuff like that, and all these ritzy houses around them. So, well, let's go a little further. So now this walk that used to be really short, now when we're at our fastest speed, now it takes us a good hour and a half to do that full walk. And we've done that for the longest time until just this summer, where I wouldn't say every day, but every few days or so, especially when it was really nice out, we would start adding a little bit of jogging into the mix.
Nice.
And because of the confidence that has given the two of us, we actually recently did sign up for a gym locally here. It's not a typical gym. It's actually an athletic pavilion. So they do a lot of like sporting events on the courts, but there is an upper area that has a running track. And then they have gym equipment up there as well too. So we go nice and early in the morning, and it's always, we're there, we're probably the young people that are there, because 7 a.m. in the morning on a Saturday isn't really inclined to see a whole lot of people our age or younger. So we got these people who are typically in their 50s, 60s, I think even 70s that are there, walking the track as well, or running. There's one guy there that blows my mind, because I swear he's probably 70 years old, and he's running that track like it's no big deal. And every single time I'm like, I want to be that guy one of these days. Like he's good. He's real good. And in doing so, we also get to use the gym equipment. So I've been, getting into the weightlifting and stuff like that. And, the wife joins me sometimes with the weights, or if she doesn't feel like doing the lifting, she'll keep the track going, and I'll go and do some weightlifting for a bit. So it's a great activity we can do together. And I can't stress enough that anybody listening, start with things at home, even simple things. If you have a staircase, here's a cool one. Just go to your staircase and just step up and down a bunch of times. That's all a stair climber is, and you can do that right from the comfort of your own home. No trouble at all.
And if you're like me and you don't like your neighbors because they have toddlers that do the same thing without any kind of respect, you don't have to do it respectfully. Just run up and down the stairs to just pay them back.
Yeah, there's always that too.
So as you mentioned, Bobby, there's always that catalyst kind of moment, and for you, it was this going up the stairs and recognizing that there was some breathing problems. For myself, I had started noticing the similar issues of getting winded, just doing the simplest things. With my place, I didn't have at the time stairs in my place, but I did notice, even just walking back and forth around my small apartment, I would get very, very gassed very, very quickly just by walking around. The biggest catalyst for me, though, was when my biological mother, because I am legally adopted, but had the privilege of actually being able to contact my biological mother when she got sick and passed of liver cancer. Her main thing when I talked to her last was to take care of myself. And I knew exactly what she meant, because we were able to meet my half sister, who I've been in contact with my whole life. She and I were both very morbidly obese at the time. Our biological mother, before she got sick, was also very obese. And when she got sick, of course, the cancer just wreaks havoc on the body. And before she passed, like she went from looking like over 200 pounds to being like barely 120 in a few months. So, seeing that really kind of struck me, and I was like, I'm going to die if I don't do anything about my health. And that was when I did start to do these stretchings on the couch, starting with the Xbox. And eventually, once the partnership that I was in broke down, we separated. I actually, at this point, started to actually lose too much weight. where I actually had went from 250 pounds to 105 pounds in a matter of about a year. Um, there would be periods of gain, but when you go through these kind of serious life events, you know you're going to have these kind of things kind of happen. With myself, though, it wasn't until I started dating my current partner who encouraged me to start working out as your wife did with you, and I managed to get my hands on the P90X series. Do you remember that?
I do
With
not know, but no.
Tony Horton, I think was his name, big guru, kind of back in like the mid late 90s. Um, let me tell you, by the end of the first, like these videos, all of his videos, there's about 12 of them, and 11 of them are approximately an hour to an hour and a half long workouts, and they are hard. They do have easy kind of like alternatives for you to do, but it's like you are literally working out for an hour and a half straight with these people on this video. And then I think the ab thing was like 15 minutes, and they would add it randomly on to the end of random videos. Just be like, you haven't suffered enough for the last hour and a half. Here's 15 minutes more of a core workout. But let me tell you, man, at 105 pounds, when I had like pretty much like I went from being a fatty with no muscle mass to being like Skeletor with no muscle mass. um, Starting the P90X thing enabled me to build that muscle that I was missing for so long, to be able to just function, not even to look nice and be pretty and stuff, but to legitimately just be functional and be able to go up those flight of stairs and not be tired or feel exhausted from just walking as I was before. Though admittedly, the problems we notice they change, don't we, from the obesity to the non-obesity. Both of us relating that we were having, breathing problems. Myself, I was having some heart-related issues where my heart wasn't really feeling the greatest. I was having a lot of pain in my joints. I actually have been diagnosed with patellar subluxation in both of my knees as a result of my obesity, which essentially means that my kneecaps, they're only supposed to go up and down, rotationally speaking.
Mhm.
Mine don't. Mine go up and down and all around. They're just kind of chaotic there. My quads are not as strong as I would like them to be. My left one, I did rehab quite a bit. It doesn't seem to be as much of a problem, but my right one, I actually had an injury where I you might find this a little funny because I kind of laugh at it because I have to at this point. I tore my MCL by simply being fat. How
Ouch.
how weird is that? Just shifting your weight a weird way, if your body can't handle it, it's gonna break, and I partially tore my MCL, which has put a massive strain on my right leg. I probably will actually need a knee replacement in the next 3 to 5 years is what I was told a few years ago. So I think it's a little closer than it is further. Bobby, have you noticed a similar thing with yourself? Then that there's been kind of like a difference in problem.
Well, they're not quite in the same level. I've been fortunate enough in one way that, like, when I was overweight, I had massive back end problems. Like, I
Mm,
had injured my back twice, and I would always, oh, my back hurts. I can't get it to not hurt and everything like that. And as I started to drop the weight, that pain went away. So I've been fortunate that the back pain subsided. What did appear though, and again, this is, you got to watch your health because this is something I knew ran in my family and I should have been more aware of. But I have high blood pressure, and I found that out only just about a year ago.
yeah.
We decided to go and get blood pressure check done. And when I went to one of those ones that you go at the pharmacy,
Hmm.
checked it, it was actually reading 180 over 160, which is, for anybody watching, about a stage 4 hypertension, which is pretty much go to the hospital or you could die. So instead of rushing immediately to the hospital, because again, we were in a COVID world with lockdowns and restrictions, I went
Mhm.
over to the local doctor walk in that was available. And the doctor saw me. By the time I was sat down and relaxed a little bit, the blood pressure had gone down to about 170 over 150. Still very alarming, just
Mhm.
borderline stage 4 hypertension. So immediately he wanted to get me on some pills and knew that I had to make some more adjustments, like because he's asking me what kind of things do you eat, and I'm like, okay, well, occasionally I still have a day where I'm like, you know what, screw it, I'm having something that I want to have, like, and
I call
more
it
and
Fat
more.
Friday.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, you can't deprive yourself completely, but sometimes you need to.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I started telling him, it's like, like, I mean, what did we have for lunch? Well, we had quinoa and chickpeas and stuff. And like, I don't think he expected these kind of answers from someone who's borderline about to go over. But I said, not that long ago, I weighed 350 pounds. I've battled with weight all my life. Blood pressure runs in my family. So I got
Mhm.
put on what's called an ACE inhibitor pill. What that does is actually opens your arteries further. So it relaxes the arteries and everything. So once the arteries begin to relax, it can push things through a little bit
Mhm.
better, easing the blood pressure, which has helped substantially in that sense.
Mhm.
Also, as I started to lose the weight, I started to notice I was having a lot of stomach problems. When got it checked out, I actually have and again, I'll use another wrestler as a reference. If people have heard this from Brock Lesnar, I have diverticulitis.
Ah.
So this is a problem with the colon where actually there's pockets that build up from certain foods you eat and stuff like that. It can cause
Ah.
inflation. It allows things not to move properly. It's why if you ever see Brock Lesnar getting very red when he's in a wrestling match, it's usually from that. It's like there's such a problem inside the stomach and everything like that that it causes a issue internally, and then yeah, you start to kind of blow up from it and get
Mhm.
really worked up.
Mhm.
So those were the two major things I noticed. I did have many ankle injuries from my days in soccer, hamstring injury. It's why
Mhm.
I stopped playing altogether, because I was consistently picking up injuries. The heavier I got and the older I got, the
Mhm.
injuries were stacking up. And it was pretty bad when once to twice a year at work, I was either on crutches or hopping around or something along
Yeah.
those lines. It was not a good look anyway. And it's just time to,
Mhm.
I know it's weird to say time to get away from that sport, but it's just on top of being heavy, they're also going in heavy. I'm very competitive, so I was going in heavy to a lot of this stuff and doing myself no justice. I needed to get into like I said, things that we could do at home with the wife, going for walks,
Mhm.
things like that, where it wasn't high stress, high impact on the body right away. And that's
Mhm.
one reason I'll recommend DDP yoga, because as difficult it is, and believe me, it can be very, very difficult. It is also rewarding and not very high impact on the body. And there is
Mhm.
variations to certain things you can do with DDP yoga that allow you to ease into it as you're learning. And I encourage people, don't get discouraged. If something seems hard, find a way to make an alternative to it, or take a 40-minute video and find 20 minutes of it that you can start with. Oh, I can do this piece, and this piece. I'll try that today. And then push yourself a little further each time. Because you
Mhm.
don't make, like you're saying, if you put that instant impact on your body, you might not realize it at first. But again, that's where the other problems can start to stack up, because the impact that your body's not used to can
Mhm.
stack up on you over time and cause a lot of injuries. Will I have stuff show up? I'm sure of it. I, I'm probably that guy right now that shouldn't be talking, because I'm stubborn that I have to be forced to go see a doctor. I have to be to a point where I could be borderline dying before I will actually go and get medical advice. Otherwise, I'm like, no,
Relatable.
just tough it up, because that was the upbringing I had. That was the other thing. Like
Mhm.
every single time I had an injury or something like that as a kid, the old man was right there to tell me, suck it up. Don't
Mhm.
don't cry about it. Suck it up. Be a man. That was his favorite thing. Be a man, because
Mhm.
apparently that explains everything. Be a man. That's no emotion, no heart, no care, kind of thing. That's what being a man means. Apparently, is what I found out as a kid. And,
Nay, nay, I say. Nay, nay.
yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean, ever since I say I don't talk to him anymore. I mean, ever since then, I've learned how to expand myself as a person. I mean, I
Mhm.
think I learned a lot of bad lessons from him. and I wasn't
Mhm.
always the greatest person myself. And
Mhm.
I've dealt a lot with my mental health over the years, which has caused a lot of issues as well too. And
Mhm.
in doing so, I did a lot of blaming. Everything was somebody else's fault. Everything was someone
Mhm.
else's fault and stuff. And I think I had to go on this journey, along with a lot of other journeys, to kind of rediscover myself. Still
Mhm.
battle with mental health. That's never going to go away. But that's my mental health has taken me to some really dark places, and
Mhm.
weight has been one of them. Um,
Mhm.
I'll say this even before we go to the next spot. When I was in high school, I got to the point with my mental health, and I used to try to hide it. I didn't want people to know that I was depressed, that I had
Mhm.
anxiety, that things always are racked up in my brain. And then people, I didn't not fit in, but I wasn't always in with the right groups. Like I
Mhm.
was the guy that hung out with the goth kids. I was the guy that hung out with those types of people. I had friends
Mhm.
that were the jocks and stuff too, but I was more inclined to go hang out with people that wanted to go to a Slipknot concert on a Saturday rather than anything else. So all of a sudden, because I was a horror movie fan, I'm a heavy metal fan and all this, and the Columbine shootings happened around that time in the 90s. Everyone
Mhm.
started to get these assumptions about people, and I was one of those people they got assumptions about. I was going to be the next one to snap and lose it on the school, and so I became
Mhm.
outcasted even more. And I kind of put myself in such a dark place because I felt like, what am I doing wrong that people don't like me?
Mhm.
So where I started overeating with the thought that I could do it and finish myself that way. And I would not have to feel guilty like I was being selfish, because
Mhm.
mentally I taught myself, if I die of a heart attack, if it's an accident, it's not me trying to do it on purpose. Nobody will think poorly of me in doing
Mhm.
so. And I took myself down that path really, really badly before I could ever find it in myself to say that's not the right thing to do. So
Mhm.
that took me on a really bad journey with the yo-yoing of the weight for sure.
Mhm. Mhm. That's it's interesting you bring that up too because like a part of humanity I'm starting to realize at my age is dealing with these mental health and the depressive states of our lives. And I was a similar kind of person in high school. I was very much a fly on the wall. I didn't have one group that I kind of hung out with. I was kind of like all over the place. Everyone knew who I was, but like they didn't know who I was, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, they knew my face because I was always around. They knew my name because I was always around, but they didn't really know that much about me kind of thing. But, yeah, the mental health does take a huge toll on the eating. With myself, I am an emotional eater, so anytime that, there's a good feeling, it's a time to eat. If there's a bad feeling, it's a time to eat. If there's just a feeling, there it was an excuse for me to eat, which, catered especially to my last kind of ballooning, being in the relationship that I was in. It was very, very toxic, not good for either one of us, and just eating and eating poorly because we were surrounded by fast food became how not only myself but my partner kind of dealt with our mental health, in that moment. When I finally did kind of get rid of the guy and really started focusing though on being healthy and eating right and kind of eating, kind of, if I had to compare it to something that is what is trendy right now. The way I eat is kind of a loosey-goosey paleo diet. I have a protein that I season, I have vegetables that I don't put a crap ton of other things on, I have a simple carb of either rice or potato. But before, like, when I first started doing this, I was a big romaine lettuce lady. Now for any of you who live in Canada and know how much we love our romaine, you know that every so often we have a little problem with our romaine. And for some reason, it ends up getting, cross contaminated with E. coli. So in my weight loss journey, I think I'd gotten down to about 120 pounds. I was really happy. I was actually sitting there like, this might be a little too much. I was eating a lot of wraps. A lot of these wraps had romaine lettuce, and despite my cleaning, I ended up contracting E. coli and nearly
Oh, oh
dying.
no.
So that's kind of what kicked off that last kind of 15 pounds for me, took me down to that 105 kind of dangerous level where I went from, I don't know if you experienced this, Bobby, but like in Edmonton here, whenever I would go to like the malls and stuff, I would always get a comment from somebody when I was obese. I would like, it didn't matter where I was, if I was at, for some of the malls, West Edmonton Mall, if I was at Londonderry Mall, if I was at Kingsway Mall, these are major malls where there's a lot of people. If I was sitting there eating and I was close enough to an aisle, someone would make a comment when I was sitting there eating. And it's one of those things where people, looping back to our mental health thing, it's not something that people always take into consideration, that you're making a comment about a stranger. You know, when you just walk by and go, put the fork down, fatty, it's like you don't even know that person. You don't know what they're going through or what it is that has made them that way. Just let them eat their dang food. At least they can afford it. You know? Yeah, this whole weight loss thing has been a journey for both of us, and such different journeys. With yourself, you really started with the with your wife and the dieting and the lifestyle change, the walking, the setting yourself goals. Now you guys are going to a gym. With myself, like I started in a gym. I got scared of going to the gym. I went back and started working at that gym just to prove a point to that gym. Now I don't even go to a gym. I have a complete home gym in my basement with like a squat rack, free
Awesome.
weights. I can work out when I want, how I want. I don't have to worry about people seeing me. I like, it's great. But it really shows that you can really start anywhere. You can start with anything. And as long as you're happy doing it and motivated to keep doing what's making you happy, you can really set your mind to doing anything that it is that you want to do. And yeah, Bobby, what else do you have to say about this journey?
Well, I will touch on the food subject for just a moment as well,
Yes,
too, if
please.
I could, because that was one thing I struggled with. Because certain foods you get accustomed to, and you really don't want to let things go. So the best way I found to do it was to attack little pieces at a time. What are some of the
Mhm,
things that I could find a substitute? And that's what you really got to do is find substitutes. And
mhm,
you know, I'm always a thirsty fellow. I mean, I like drinking something lots,
mhm,
whether, and at the time it was always sugary drinks. I was bad for that. Cola
mhm,
was a big staple in my life. And then
mhm.
you get the impression I'm going to be healthy. I'm going to drink apple juice and orange juice.
Yeah.
And as much as it's been stressed that these things are good, high doses of these things are not so
No.
good. And what they don't tell you is that there is still a sugar content in fruits and everything like
Mhm,
that. And yes, fruits are healthy, especially certain ones,
mhm,
blueberries, acai berries,
mhm,
blackberries, things like that have a lot of great antioxidants. But there are sugar levels that you have to watch out for. And overdoing the sugar levels creates the high sugars in your body, which then store, and that's where a lot of the fat cells tend to come from. So I
exactly.
started to sub out. I started slowly with getting rid of the pop. So I started to go and drink only black coffee. I would drink water. We found soda water to replace my craving for pop, which has been a
Ooh.
blessing in disguise.
Mhm,
And then
mhm,
we discovered kombucha, and I like me some kombucha. Now, again, in small doses, kombucha is a treat drink. That's how
mhm.
we treat it. It's like about every few days or something like that. Sit down, have a meal, have a kombucha. And we have this beautiful Saskatoon berry kombucha that's made here and everything like
Ooh.
that. It's just delicious. And I think it's only about 9 grams of sugar or something like that. So it's a
Oh,
very low
wow.
sugar kombucha drink made by Parkview Farms. So I'll give them a plug on our show here, even though they're not a sponsor. They get
Absolutely.
the plug for helping me out. And it's a wonderful drink. So we've done that over time, which has been incredible. One of the things we started to do too was eat more quinoa. And I know a lot of people are probably just moaning right now, oh, quinoa, awful. But you can make quinoa very similar to rice, especially when you put it with certain things. If you're somebody who likes to have like a curry or a stir fry, now you can start to add vegetables and things like that that are going to take on the right type of flavoring that you need. Use fresh ingredients. I know they're not cheap, but your health shouldn't have a price. You want to use fresh ingredients as much as possible. If you're somebody that finds you get home from work and I have no motivation to spend an hour putting food together and then cook it too. And then I got to wait till 7, 8 o'clock before I'm eating, which again isn't really the right way to do it because after a certain time of night, your body slows down. You shouldn't really be eating big, heavy meals. So the wife and I treated ourselves recently to the Ninja Speedy. If anyone's seen the commercials for this cool little contraption, it is an air fryer slash steamer. So you can do the air frying side of it, which is great when we just want to throw some like good chicken wings in there. You just throw some good fresh chicken wings. Don't have to add any extra breading or anything like that. No breading on them. You can air fry those things in 25 minutes and they're full crispy and ready to eat. You can also they have different meal plans in there. And because it's a dual system and you've got 2 stacks within it, we can put a protein and a veg in at the same time, steam it for 15 minutes, and you can have like a nice steamed chicken breast and some broccoli and carrots or something like that. They taste delicious, and it's a full healthy meal that you can have in 15 minutes. You know what? You'll sit in a McDonald's drive-through these days for 30 minutes to get a couple of Big Macs that are going to make you feel like crap, or you can go spend a couple $100 on one of these Ninja Speedies and have full-blown healthy meals in 15 minutes that you'll feel much better about. And I'm really glad we made the purchase and have upped our game, especially. I watch a lot of cooking shows to get ideas. I really like to experiment now. It's a lot of fun. I try to make cooking a fun time. Like we have Christmas coming up, and the wife and I, we've got Christmas Eve plans. I know this is coming out after Christmas, so ignore this part for anyone watching. But we're gonna make some really good stuff, and we're looking forward to like the vegetables we're gonna make and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, there's turkey, of course. There's turkey. But just have fun with it. If you have a significant other, take the time to learn to cook with them, or have the excitement that they see when you bring in this nice cooked meal or something like that, and everything like that. It brings a little bit of joy to your heart. And I think that that's how I can encourage people to try their best to just change a little bit of what you're eating at a time. Don't do it all in one day. You do it all in one day, it's like trying to quit smoking cigarettes or something like that. You'll lose it and you'll be right back to doing it before long, kind of thing. Just pick at it a little bit by a little bit, and you'll find you'll change your life very soon.
Absolutely. Like you mentioned earlier, it is a lifestyle change, not a lifestyle abrupt change. It's going to be something that you are going to slowly kind of get into. And it's not always going to be the same thing that works for everyone else. What worked for Bobby might not work for you, might not work for me. What worked for me might not work for you, might not work for Bobby. It's all about figuring out what works for your body and what makes you happy and what makes you feel good. And what matters the most is that you feel good in your own skin and that you feel good with what you're eating. Maybe avoid the romaine lettuce for a little while.
or rinse for a long time.
Yeah, that too. So that being said, we do recognize, obviously, this is obviously something that's not always going to be easy to kind of get started on. You might not always know the right place to start. With myself, this was kind of before the Instagram stuff became very, very popular, but right now, with someone who does the yoga, who does the calisthenics, who does weight training, I do this all at home, and I do this a lot with the power of Instagram. Obviously, you don't want to look at like everything that you see and be like, oh yeah, that's going to work perfectly. There are certain things that I have tried that certain influencers have been like, oh yeah, this is great, this is going to work so much. And I've injured myself. I've had a double rotator cuff injury now for a couple months that I've been trying to nurse back to health because I did this movement that this influencer said that was not a good movement. So it's all about kind of figuring out what works for you, what works for your body. If you are having a problem trying to figure anything like that out, wanted to take this opportunity to direct your attention to a friend of mine. I think, Bobby, you've met him a little bit. Our good friend Rich King, who runs RK Athletics. He is a personal trainer. He does online training. I've seen a lot of his stuff online. He does a lot of positive affirmation stuff throughout the week. Definitely want to check him out. I will obviously leave a link to his website in the description box below. But if you're looking for weight training routines, nutritional help, anything to kind of help you get on the right track, and you just really don't know where to begin, give Rich a call or a text or a message or whatever. He will set things up for you and get you on the right track. But of course, you can always contact myself and Bobby. We're always willing to share any tips, tricks, help, secrets, or even just be an ear for you to just vent to about what you're going through. Maybe that's all you need to kind of get things out and get things started in the right direction for you.
That's right.
Bobby,
Yeah, that's right.
I
And
think,
oh,
no, go
sorry,
ahead.
I'm in, but I was going to say you can also reach out to Rich King at RK Athletics. So he is on Twitter, and he also has that home plans that you can do from the comfort of your own
Mhm,
home. Rich is a fantastic gentleman. He knows his stuff, definitely. And if you're
mhm,
also looking for, like I was talking about, food alternatives, one we
mhm,
didn't mention as well too, you'll see right below me on the screen a little QR code and the name Rogue for our good friends over at Rogue Energy. So our good friends at Rogue Energy are in the healthy side of things as well too.
mhm,
If you're looking for an alternative to the everyday high sugar energy drinks that you'll find in the store, then you want to finish a visit over to rogueenergy.com,
mhm,
where they offer a vegan friendly, I think low calorie, zero sugar
mhm.
alternative to what you get in the stores, bursting with flavors. And we have a deal. You can use OLE pods is the promo code for 10% off your order. And that will help to get you to a better you in this year, 2023, because it's on the horizon, and we're here to motivate all of you guys. We're here to be
Almost there.
your helpful ear kind of thing. Like Mel said, reach out to us. We want to
Mhm,
help you. Any further things that we can help you with, talk to you about, or even just be that person that is there to say, hey, we're here to listen. That's what we're here
mhm,
for. Because not only is it about loving your health, but it's about loving yourself as well too. Because that's
mhm,
half the battle, is making sure that you have love for yourself. And that's what we're here to do, is help you get to that goal in 2023.
absolutely. Getting back to your rogue plug there, I did have the privilege of trying the blood orange, the sour candy, and the rocket pop. Oh my God. The blood orange is like you're eating a piece of orange, like a slice of orange. It's absolutely unreal. Highly recommend. And not only do they have an energy drink alternative, they also have a hydrate, which is essentially a BCA or a EAA if you're in the supplement lingo dingo there. And they also have the protein shakes as well, which don't make a Melball mistake and try to make them with water. Make them with your milk because they're going to taste a lot better. Oreo does not taste good in water.
I could only imagine.
It was not great, to say the absolute least. So I think that kind of brings us to the end of our amazing health journey here, Bobby. If everyone's wanting to follow you on your social medias, where can we find you?
Well, I think we can make that one very, very easy for them, because like we got this
Yay!
cool little thing set up. I don't know if we have one set up for you yet, which is a shame. We
Hey,
should have
that's
done that
okay.
ahead of
I
time,
will
but
always put them in the
we'll, we'll,
description
we'll,
box.
we'll we'll get to there. But yes, you can check out the ticker below. You can reach out to me there. And again, reach out to us on all the socials for OLE Pods. Again, not
Mhm,
only myself and Mel, a part of the OLE crew, but many other wonderful people here that do great shows and are also great motivators as well too.
mhm,
I like to think of OLE as an extended family.
mhm,
It's not just friends, it's an extended family. And even sometimes when I've felt at my worst, everybody here has been understanding and accepting, and not been the kind to push me away or turn me away and stuff like that. I'm not always the easiest person to deal with, but everybody here has made me feel more accepted than most people have ever done in my life, and I'm very thankful for it. And I believe that OLE is the great place for people to reach out to when you're looking for when you need a friend. This is the best place to be.
yeah, the best place to find a friend is your local establishment.
How about yourself? Where can people find you?
So if you're wanting to follow a Melball on Twitter, you can find me at Collins Melball, or you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Melball Collins. You can also find me on my Facebook fan page for Andre and Melball's Wrestling Talk. I'm pretty active on there, posting lots of stories and trying to get people excited about Wrestle Kingdom coming up.
Should be good.
So that being said, I think we've come to the end of our amazing show here. I am your Melball. That is Bobby over there. We will see you next time for another fun show, hopefully about loving your health.
Good
Toodles.
night, everybody.